again, and welcome to The Luxury of Choice, a B2B technical sales podcast brought to you by the training team of George James Limited. My name is Steve Vaughan. I'm a senior sales trainer at George James, as well as the host and producer of this podcast. We're back again with my colleagues Jonathan Cooper and Prue Layton, and this is the second part of a two-part episode on negotiation. So if you heard our episode a month ago, that was all about preparing and getting ready for the negotiation. Today we're going to look at what actually takes place in the negotiation. But before that, Jonathan, Prue, how are we both doing?
Yeah, great.
Well, I've had an exciting week.
Yeah, go ahead, Prue.
Sorry, Prue. Yeah, you carry on.
Yeah, I did some a very original. The first time ever, I actually did some training on a barge on a river in Paris. How exciting was that?
Yeah, cool. I guess it was a big one.
It was a big one. Yeah, it was very unique for me. I've never done that before. Been doing this a long time, and very memorable.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah.
I guess it would be a fun place to have training, and also somewhere a bit different in terms of making it more memorable and just getting people there. Yeah, good, cool. Yeah, Jonathan, what about you?
Yeah, well, probably a first for me since COVID, actually. I had 4 days in the classroom this week, 2 in Switzerland and 2 in the UK. And had four very energizing days. So that's always a great week when you get energized and really enjoyable. Have lots of discussion about sales process, which of course, as from previous podcasts, happens to be just a little bit of a passion of mine.
Yeah, well, for all of us, I guess, really. Yeah. Good, yeah. Well, I've been getting over a cold, so I'm slightly croaky, so bear with me on that one. But Prue and I have been working together now for a while with a large US customer, and that's ongoing. I've also been recording some other podcasts, which will be coming out after this particular one as well. So, not traveling this week. I've been home based myself most of the time anyway. Okay, so we've prepped for our negotiation. So if you've listened to the last podcast, great. If you haven't, just a quick rewind. So we talked about really what we need to think about if we're going into a negotiation, who we're negotiating with. We've also talked about, who's going to be on the team, those kind of things, really. But now we've got to make it work. We've got to come out of the negotiation, hopefully, with a good outcome, really. So we were talking just before we started the podcast, Jonathan. I know you had some thoughts here in terms of like the general aim of the negotiation or the sort of general feel of it, really, before we get into sort of the nuts and bolts of it, really. So just share with the listener what we were talking about beforehand. Yeah.
So for me, Steve, I would just do a effectively 10 or 15 second recap. That preparation we do before, we get to, inverted commas, the table, and we formally start to negotiate. Yes, it may be face to face, but it could obviously well be by video, or by telephone. But before we start that, that preparation has been key, because for me, one of the things that really allows us to try and understand, is that is the ZOPA. So something I think I referred to in the previous podcast was the ZOPA, the zone of possible agreement. And I think going into the negotiation, with that in mind is absolutely fundamental, because that's the end point for me. Taking all of this time to gather all of this information through the qualification, et cetera, we reach this point. We should now have a reasonably clear understanding, of exactly what we want to get from this. And of course, that's exactly, we should also have a grasp and an understanding of what the customer wants for this. We talked last time as well about the involvement of purchasing and how that, it's quite common that we might negotiate with purchasing. I always work on, I make an assumption, and I know it's dangerous to make assumptions. The assumption I always make here is that, the purchaser will know very clearly what they want to get from it, and may well have qualified you very well as well. So, that to all intents and purposes, we should be able to have a great discussion. Yes, we will have to negotiate because it's very unlikely that we both see the world through the same, we see things the same in terms of an outcome at the outset. But of course, that's what the process is about.
Okay, so the zone of possible agreement, it's an area where our scenario and their scenario might overlap, Prue, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And if it doesn't, then you're in trouble.
I guess so, yeah. How would we know, though? How can we we may have got a great relationship with the purchaser. Maybe the first time we met them, hopefully not, but it could be. How will we have an ability to get an idea as to what they might we're looking for in the negotiation?
I think if you're in the negotiation, whether it's a professional purchaser or whether it's the final part of the sales process, it's just rechecking and restating exactly what they're after, to be honest. If you guess it's dangerous, like Jonathan said, make assumptions. Yeah, it's a very dangerous place to be. I think we need to be bold. I think we need to ask, and if their position appears unattainable, we should be able to call that out.
Right. So it's saying right up front. So obviously I'm here to hopefully agree, an income with yourself, but I know what I would like to get out of today's meeting. But what would you like to get out of today's meeting?
Yeah.
Right up front, yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I think, I think very much when you go into the negotiation, the person that makes the first proposal or positioning actually is the person who manages where the meeting goes.
Right.
If you think about when we spoke last time, we always say, what do you want to get out of the meeting? But I think when we're negotiating, it's very different. I think and difficult. I think we should make the first proposal about, what the meeting's about and what a good outcome would look like. And
okay, so take the initiative, take the lead, before the other person will if we don't. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if they make an describe what they want, which is outrageous and doesn't align with all the other work we've done and all our other standing about budget and important things, we need to call it out. What was it that Neil always does when they say, "What's your best price, Jonathan?"
Twice list.
When yes,
twice
list.
That's iconic.
The purchaser once asked Neil my co-founder Neil Burns, customer asked him a question once. It was a brilliant one. What's your best price? And he went, "Well, it's about twice list." Twice list is a great response. Okay.
Yeah, and I think also that shows a little bit of a bit of courage, but also a little bit of humour. Really, I know when I was asked once in a negotiation for an OEM relationship, the purchaser said to me, I would need 75% resale discount. And I said, his name was Otto. I said, Otto, it's been very nice to meet you, but I'm now going to go and get my flight. And we had a laugh about it. So, I'm not sure we can always laugh in negotiation. But I think, having a little bit of... Yeah.
Hey, Steve, there's a golden rule, isn't there, that we didn't talk about last time? And I know I digress here, but this is a chat.
No, please.
So it's about building rapport. Right. And we all know we almost certainly will end up doing the best deals with the people we have the best rapport with. Now, look, it may be you're dead right. You've not met that purchaser before. It could be the very, very first time you've met them. And, but you have to be able to build rapport. Right. And injecting a bit of humor, that does absolutely no harm whatsoever. You know why you're there. They know why you're there. You know why they're there. They know why they are there. So we're not under any misapprehension. And I think that initial posturing can be humorous, right? Especially if there are any outrageous demands. And let's face it, if they're a great purchaser, expect them to ask for something like that. It's not unusual, is it?
Why not? No, absolutely. As Tom Jones sang,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Don't start singing in the negotiation, guys. No. Okay, so we take the initiative, Prue. We say to the buyer, the other side of the table, what is it that you want to get out of today's meeting? Just to go back to the point Jonathan mentioned, and I know you're a big fan of this, is this a really good reason why we need to speak to purchasing earlier in the sales process so we know who they are?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jonathan mentioned it. We get the best deals with the people that we've built rapport with. You're never going to do it if the very first time you are engaged with this person is concluding the deal. There is almost no chance of building any rapport.
Absolutely.
So you're already on the back foot. You're already under pressure. Let's not pretend you're not under pressure when you go into a negotiation. I don't think it matters how many times you've done this. This is definitely one of those pressure points in sales. You've done a lot of work. You've probably told people inside your organisation that this is looking really good. You may well have forecast it. So don't underestimate. This is always pressure. So,
absolutely. Yeah.
You need to go in. I think you need to deal with it that way. I absolutely think so. Yeah.
And I actually quite like an initial bit of humour, Steve, because Prue's right. There is this pressure, and we don't always make the best decisions under pressure. Some people may do,
Sure.
but not everybody does. And I think just to lighten the mood for a moment can just relieve that slightly and just allow you to be, go back to those notes that you've made, go back to that information that you've gathered, just enables you to sort of be calm, right? And recognize that there is an outcome that you want, and that's what you've got to strive towards, whilst, of course, being able to accommodate the other party. So you have that win-win we previously and briefly mentioned.
So let's explore that, because we talk about that a little bit in the first podcast on negotiation. So win-win. People sometimes roll their eyes when we talk about a win-win. It's a cliche, it's a win-win. But I fundamentally agree that a good negotiation should be a win-win. But what does that actually mean in practice, Prue? What is a win-win? What does it mean?
I think a win-win. There's two sides to it. Is both parties get something they want, and both parties make a compromise.
Right.
So it's like balancing the scales in as much as we walk away with a deal that we both feel was good for our respective organisations. They do and we do. And in order to achieve that, we've both moved a little. We've both made some concessions and maybe not got our ideal outcome. And so that when we've finished it, both sides go, well, actually, that was okay. And I'd be happy to have this discussion next quarter, next year, or whenever it is, that they feel that you were professional, that you gave, you acted properly, and it's a good deal on both sides. So they'll do that again with you. That's my idea of a win-win.
What you say is quite right. If it's a key account, we might be negotiating with them on a regular basis. So, you want to go into that next negotiation feeling that the last one we did was a good outcome, really. So it's not about getting everything that we want, Jonathan. It's not about insisting, this is my position, take it or leave it.
Well, I think Prue, there's just something to pick up on that Prue said. Prue's mentioned it actually, I think, briefly in the first podcast about this, and she just mentioned it again. I would like to stress, so it's absolutely explicit. I think part of win-win is that you come out of it at the end. It isn't just about the agreement. It's the way in which the discussions were conducted. And it may have been a really robust discussion. It may have been a really tough discussion, but you actually, both parties would want to go through it again. That for me is a critical part of a win-win, right? We've conducted it in such a way, you come out of it and actually you say, do you know what? I really enjoyed that. And I would say anyway, if you really enjoy your negotiation, you should tell your customer. Right, just tell them I really enjoyed that, and if they have if they've demonstrated some great negotiation skills, compliment them on them. And sometimes, hey, I've learned a lot from experienced purchasers. They've given me some of my best negotiation skills training of all in my life. I think the other thing is the ideal, and I think it's a big topic, so can't really go into it in any depth. But there's a great thing in negotiation called either creating value or claiming value. And I think if you've not done enough preparation and really understood the customer, in the right way, and really understood what's important to them, and looked around their business, you can very easily end up, with very little, if you like, very little to negotiate. But I think if you've really taken time to understand your customer, all right, and perhaps they've taken time to understand you, maybe, we don't just claim value. We fight over those two or three things that we could. And I've used the word fight, probably a bit strong, but we fight over those two or three things that are obvious we could discuss. Yeah. I think if you've really understood the customer more broadly, maybe there are some other things that you can introduce into the discussion, right, that actually could be a part of it. Maybe the customer hasn't realized that, this is something that you might actually want or are prepared to concede that they might want, and vice versa. So there's this great piece around claiming value or creating value. The danger is, of course, if people rush to claim value, it can stop that creative moment. And it's almost being on the same side of the desk as the customer to say, right, here are some things that we could trade. Actually, why don't we spend some time thinking about even more things that we could trade? I've noticed this about your business. There's something here that would potentially be very attractive. Maybe it's a bit of a different approach, but claiming versus creating value, I think perhaps can take us closer to both parties to their ideal.
Got you. And you used a word there that we've perhaps not used before, which is trade. And I know, because we all teach negotiation training, that negotiation, a key part of negotiation is trading. So what do we mean by trading, Prue, and what kind of things are we trading?
we always sort of kick off this phase, I think, when we talk to people, that if you go into a negotiation and thinking it's all about price, actually you've already lost. Because it's only going one way.
It's never going to go up in a negotiation, is it?
No, rarely.
Twice the price,
To be fair, I have on probably one occasion walked in to negotiate on one system and walked away with two, which was interesting. But that doesn't happen very often.
No.
But no, I think we have to go in and say, if this is negotiation, and we talked about the win-win, which is what we want, and about compromise, there has to be a list of things that we are willing to compromise and discuss, and that's part of the trade. And it's all about the value concept, isn't it? It's about, as well as the price, what else is of value to the customer, and equally, what's of value to us?
Right.
Best possible chance that we have of getting some added value on our side, because it's a two-way thing, isn't it? So to give an example,
please.
So many times, we have the quotation or the proposal in front of the customer, but they may want to use all of their budget, but they'd like you to add value to that. So get a little more without moving on price of the whole proposal you've already made. And that could form lots of things in terms of additional warranty or service or support ongoing, additional training, and all sorts of things that could actually keep the price fixed, but they get a little more value for their money. If we think about personal experience, we may go in a bit like you, Steve. I also have a partner who loves their optics. When we go in to buy
optics,
the fifth, sixth, or seventh
Let's not
camera.
Go on that one. So that's another podcast for another day.
Yeah, sorry.
Carry on,
sorry.
We go in to buy camera number 5, 6, or 7. He never fails to get a pack, a cover, a holder for it, a better strap for it, something to put it in. We have more camera bags in this house. We could probably open a shop. But it's the same when you negotiate, is that they want value. But equally, what do we want from them? What would be great to secure?
Right.
So, ideas.
Give me some examples.
So I was talking this week about negotiation. So one of the things in our world is that if we're selling into an area where they have research, they publish, they have posters, they present at conferences, wouldn't we love them to mention what they got this data on?
That would be nice, wouldn't it?
So the ability for them to think about acknowledging the instrument or the consumables or the reagents or whatever they use in order to get this data when they're on some platform is really helpful. What a great thing to secure when you're at negotiation.
And that doesn't cost them anything, does it?
No. High value to us, of little cost to them. Yeah.
Right.
And
I think there's the rub, isn't it, really? What's of high value to us and low cost to them, Jonathan?
Yes.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but go on. Yeah.
No, it's fine. And I was just going to say, and that is actually easy for them to trade and easy for them to give you. If you ask for something that's impossible for them to give you, you'll rapidly bring the negotiation to a halt. So I think those three criteria are key. And of course, during the preparation and that preparation just before the meeting, we should have a really clear view of what it is we want to trade. We should have a trading list prepared. We should understand exactly how much the things that we're going to trade, actually, what is the cost of those and what is the value to the other party. I don't think we spend enough time doing that. And it's very easy to end up throwing things away. I mean, how often, and I've been guilty of it, thrown away customer training, thrown away. Well, I've not thrown it away. I've given it away. Right. I didn't trade. I gave it away. Right, customer training, but it could have been free service, right? Sorry, service managers and service leaders, what a nightmare, right? Giving away extended warranty, free service contracts, and those things, we should be trading it because often those things are of high value to our customer. And often, of course, they have a separate budget for those. Now, there may be some really good arguments, but that's part of your prep of why you might want to give away a consumable starter pack. You want to get them, using your consumables on that instrument, especially if they're not specific to the instrument or whatever it happens to be. So, I think some great points in there. Just a couple of points on price, or one specifically. I've always observed that the more you talk about price, the lower it does get. it never seems to go up, right? Or I've been unable to do that, so maybe that's just my failing. But generally, the more you talk about it, the lower it gets, right? And I think if you go in, having prepared these trading options, then you're far less likely to spend time talking about the price or allowing that to become part of the discussion. I don't know if I mentioned it in the first podcast, even though I'll re-listen to it just to check. If all you talk about is price, it's haggling. And that's not negotiation, it's haggling. And okay, maybe the odd haggle has its place. Maybe. But yeah, some other things about...
But we won't go there. Yeah.
No, that's right. I think the other thing about trading is it's trading in small steps. Be really careful about trading in big steps. For me, I was always taught small steps. And when I did those role plays as part of a brilliant negotiation skills course I went on a long time ago in my life, I saw the advantage in small steps as opposed to large steps. Very easy to end up with an imbalance and a win-lose or a lose-win if that's what starts to happen. So small
is this
steps.
Not going from... this isn't going like... And I'll ask this question to you, Prue. What you're saying is you're not going 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 as discounts. Is this going like 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4? Or am I misunderstanding this bit, Prue?
No, I think it's whatever you offer, small steps. You sort of have nicely led me in to talk about, should we talk in percentages when we are talking about moving? Of course we should not. The biggest number we can get to in percentages is 100. And that's, for most of the deals that we do, is actually a really small number. So really talk about the cash equivalent, the money equivalent of how you're moving or what you're conceding or what you're giving away. Inevitably, it will always be much bigger than the percentage number. And it also stops you moving in those sort of nice, neat packages up the, it's just another 2%. 2% is a lot. But when you say, are you actually asking me for another 7,000 or whatever it is, whatever the number is, it's more impactful. So I think if you go on a professional purchaser's course, they encourage you to talk in percentages because it's misleading in terms of our side. So we should always talk in terms of the cash equivalent of what we're willing to trade.
Yes,
I think.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if you want if the listener wants some homework after this, go back and look at the last, say, 20 discounts you've offered. Have a look. What was the percentage that you gave, right? What was it? Did it fall into one of those classic categories? 2.5, 5, 7.5, 10, 12.5, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Prue is so right. Whether it's a $100,000 service deal, $100,000 reagent, consumable, or instrument deal, if you could just move another 2.5%, Jonathan, right, the deal's yours. It's a tiny number, but it represents a large pile of cash. And as we said last time, the more you give away, the more you have to sell. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, if you're selling $1 million mass spectrometer, 2% is a lot of money, isn't it?
Yes.
That's right. Yeah. You're not
talking in terms of real money rather than percentages, Prue.
I think the other thing that we know the budget by the time we've got to this stage. We have a really good idea of the budget. So I think, adding value to them spending all of the budget they have is much more impactful than just taking a bit of money off every time, I think, is really get them to think about maximising this budget that they have.
Sure. Yeah. So we said a few times that if all we ever talk about is prices that we're going to lose, really. Do we have to have the courage in that case, Prue, to say to the customer, apart from price, what else is important to you today?
Yeah, and I always do it slightly differently. I think if I'm with a professional purchaser, I say, I know we're going to talk about price, but let's just park it for a minute and let's try and talk about some other things that you care about. I tell them I'm very happy to deal with the price, and I know that we're going to talk about it, and I'm sure we're going to have some fun with it, and I know what you're going to say to me. But let's start with me really understanding, So I acknowledge I'm not avoiding it, but it's like, let's talk some other stuff, and then we'll do that. We'll have some fun with the price thing. Okay, I'm happy to do that.
Because if I'm a purchaser, let's say at a chemical factory or a pharmaceutical site or something, and if I'm negotiating with a supplier, if I get things like guarantee supply wrong or quality wrong, if I negotiate a deal with somebody who can't deliver or delivers poor quality, then I'm going to let down the organisation. I'm going to cost the organisation potentially millions of pounds, aren't I? So it isn't just price, Jonathan, is it?
No, and I think you're right, Steve. That whole discussion about assurance of supply, I think, is sometimes way more critical, and especially if we're speaking to the purchaser. This is never going to be a technical discussion. I think we said last time that piece now is arguably behind us. Yes, somebody may have joined the discussion. There may be some negotiation around the specification, potentially, depending what you're selling. But absolutely, assurance of supply. There's a really important thing. And when a purchaser's dealing with you, that they want to know that there is, you can assure them supply, not just today, tomorrow, but over the lifetime of the project and possibly beyond if they want a long term, or you have a long term partnership, collaboration, relationship with them. After that, they're certainly going to be looking at quality, regulatory. We previously, had a great little insight on sustainability and the importance of that as well. So, those are some more factors they'll want to consider. And, and beyond, we move then to, service, right? And servicing the account, right? In its broadest sense. So
full sense of the word,
yeah, absolutely. So, some really critical factors to the purchaser.
And in the same way that we talk about bringing proof to the technical decision maker, if we know that they're going to care about a surety of supply, consistency, regulatory compliance, easy to do business with, clarity around invoicing, all those things that purchasers care about, as a salesperson, bring the proof for the purchaser. It's not just the words you say to the purchaser, it's being able to prove that you can do it in exactly the same way as you would inside the laboratory or wherever else you've been doing your selling up to now. Don't underestimate the power of that.
So, for instance, if we wanted to make sure that the customer's convinced of our ability to support, if it's an instrument, support it if it goes wrong, things like first-time fixed data, engineer availability, response time, all that kind of thing would be of use potentially. Yeah. Really good point, actually. Yeah.
Hey,
and again, it's putting ourselves in the shoes of the other person, isn't it? Yeah. Go on, Jonathan. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I remember having a great discussion. It wasn't a negotiation with the purchaser. This was just a general discussion about our roles, about negotiating. And one of the things the purchaser said to me, which I never forgot, was he said, I never have people ever come into my office and say, we've got terrible support. Our products are really low quality. The service is lousy. We only employ unqualified people, right? Our hotline is never hot, right? It's never open. Nobody ever says that. People walk in here, tell me all these things that start with great, very good, perfect, brilliant, innovative, all of this. So the proof becomes absolutely critical, especially if you are a premium price provider. But being able to prove what you say, and Prue is so right. It's not just technical, where we're very well armed and equipped. It's also on the commercial side as well. And, great point, that Prue, about the proof. Yes, critical. Thank you.
Good point. Yeah, right. One more gem from you, Prue?
I think the other thing that I learnt in the early days around being strong in front of purchasers, which was always a challenge, actually, because it's often outside your comfort zone, is I had a bit of a bruising from one of my first engagements with a professional purchaser at a pharmaceutical company who was really tough on me. And I worked with him for a while, and he said to me after a few visits, he said, the thing is, I like to test out new salespeople who turn up here. He said, because I need to see that you're tough. And I went, why? And he said, because you're my advocate inside your organisation. So when I need you to be strong for me inside your organisation, I need to know that you're strong. And that was very telling for me. He didn't want salespeople who were pushovers, because he knew they would be a pushover inside their own organisation. So whenever I feel I'm being a bit tough, I remember what he said to me. I need to be. That's what he wants to see.
Yeah.
Or she.
Love it. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that one, Jonathan?
I don't know if mine's as profound as that, or as perhaps as valuable. I think it's a brilliant one, by the way. So I would always say, we talk about active listening and the importance of it right through the sales process when we engage with customers. For me, your ability to actively listen in the negotiation is just as important. And one of the things I was taught to do was listen for those phrases, such as, I'll give you a classic example. You ask for something and they say, well, we don't normally do that. What does that actually mean, right? What it actually means is we can. We just don't normally do it. But often don't normally do it is enough to put a salesperson off. You have to listen really, really carefully for those words.
Love
right?
That.
And, people giving you a range between 2 points, right? Again, listening to that is really important, because I always start with, obviously, the end of the range that's best suited to help me achieve what I want to achieve. But listening really carefully is a tip I would give anybody. I think when we go into a negotiation, in fact, probably in any customer conversation, you're always getting signals from people, and your ability to detect those and put them together, can strengthen, your position at the end of the day. So that would be my tip.
And I guess from my side of things, practice it. If you're going to do lots of negotiations, practice with your colleagues. It's why when we do negotiation training, we always do role plays, don't we?
Yeah,
it's a great way to learn.
Yeah,
because you do things in the role play you don't realise you do. Yeah.
I mean, it depends what you're selling.
Practice.
Because some salespeople get a lot of practice because of the nature of what they're selling, but some don't. As a purchaser said to me once, I may see more salespeople in 2 weeks than some salespeople who visit me may see purchasers in a whole year. And that puts it in perspective. Some purchasers are very experienced. And my experience is, as with Prue's, I think they love it when they meet somebody who's really good at negotiating. I think they really enjoy it. I don't think they enjoy it when people just crumble and melt on the floor in front of them. I actually think they like it.
No, it's probably the highlight of their day, isn't it, really, when they've got a negotiation through? Yeah. Something they look forward to.
Great.
Guys, thank you very much for your thoughts today on negotiation. So it's a 2-part episode. Make sure you listen to the first episode, listen if you haven't caught that one as well. It's obviously a topic very close to our heart and one that we do a lot of training on. So go out and practice your negotiation. Don't be scared about it. It's part of the job. It's actually good fun once you get used to doing it as well. So embrace that negotiation when you get out there. Don't forget, if you've enjoyed today's show, then make sure you subscribe in your favourite podcast app and tell your friends and colleagues about us, of course. Also, we would love you to leave us a review on Apple or Spotify if you use either of those 2 apps. It does help the show in lots of mysterious ways. And you can contact the show if you want to ask us a question, disagree with us, or just to raise any point you want. The email address is podcast@georgejames-training.com. I'll be back in again in a couple of weeks' time with a guest. My guest in 2 weeks' time is Jo Keeler, who's the managing director of Belbin. And actually, she will have something to say on negotiation as well. But in the meantime, happy selling out there, and we'll talk to you soon.